Good evening, friends, and a very special and good morning to Jyotish and Devi ji because they are coming live from California. Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this program, Jyotish and Devi ji. I'd like to start by offering a little gift from us all in Pune and India to you all. To you both.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you. Flowers always represent love, and we feel your love for us and more importantly for the divine. Thank
And
you.
over the years, we've seen this love of flowers you both have. Swami had also Jyotish ji in your paintings. So I'd like to start with a little introduction of you both because many of our audiences are new. They're actually meeting you for the first time, and then we will go into the program itself. So friends, first of all, thank you for joining. As you know, this program is coming on Facebook Live, also on Zoom right now. And especially if Zoom gets full, which it will at 500 capacity, then please do find us on Facebook Live. My name is Brahmachari Aditya, and I'm speaking from Ananda Sangha's center in Pune city in India. And today is a very, very special day. As I was meditating before this evening, it felt like Diwali to me. Diwali season has begun, but especially over the years, Jyotish and Devi ji have often come to Pune in Diwali. And I remember, especially 2014, 15, 16, it would somehow happen in Diwali, and it rekindled those memories for me. And I just wanted to share that feeling I had. Also, Jyotish and Deviji serve as worldwide directors for Ananda's work. They have been doing this for now over 20 years. Ananda was founded by Swami Kriyananda, a direct disciple of Paramhans Yogananda ji. And Ananda started in 1969. And last year we completed 50 years of this beautiful spiritual family. For that is what it is. And as Swami ji used to say, he said, Master Paramhans Yogananda ji brought these wonderful teachings. It was his joy and honor to share it. And we see the same legacy shining through Jyotish and Devi ji. Jyotish ji serves as the Dharmacharya of Ananda worldwide. Swami ji had named him to be his successor. And Kriyananda ji left his physical body in 2013. But as I have been saying, his presence, his joy, his love, and his grace shines through Jyotish and Devi ji, through other disciples of Swami ji. And it is a deep joy, friends, this evening to be welcoming them in India, because they would visit India around this time, usually in September every year. And we thought of arranging this program again in such a way that they visit every center, the places where Ananda Sangha has centers in India, Pune being one of them. Next month, Mumbai will be hosting this program, and every month it will go from center to center. And I do hope you can join us in this journey. So with those few words, I'd like to welcome you once again, Jyotish and Devi ji. We met a few hours ago, and I really appreciate, I know it is your deep joy. You are our spiritual parents. But I know how much this means to us for you both to be coming and visiting us. So friends.
Thank you. We just want to say the only little sadness in our heart is that we're not there physically to share Diwali and this wonderful time of the year with you. But this is what is allowed, and what God gives, we take, is what Master said.
And that is one of my questions, which I will come to later. But friends, again, those who may be joining for the first time, this is a series called In Conversation with Jyotish and Devi ji. And today's topic, in which they will be answering some of our questions, is living in challenging times. And I have to say this is a theme we have been discussing for many months. Of course, the world has been going through it. The last few years also, if we look back, have not been easy. But somehow there seems to be a grace when one has a purpose in life, especially a positive purpose. And so we wanted especially to include and ask Jyotish and Devi ji questions on this theme, because they have been living by these principles now for over 50 years. So with that, Jyotish ji, And Deviji, I'd like to ask you my very first question over here. And these questions have come from friends and many families over here. That we find ourselves now 8 months into the pandemic. The lockdown, of course, came as quite a surprise. And then now, with those who are following the news, we know normalcy may not even return the way we were accustomed to it till 2021. What would be your advice to us as devotees, as disciples, you might say, as spiritual aspirants? How can we serve as a channel for light, for strength in these times?
Well, thank you. As you say, it's a very challenging time that we're living in. But as devotees, first of all, we should recognize that challenging times are times of great opportunity. In fact, Yoganandaji taught that the times of difficulty are when the seeds of success are planted. So one thing that would be helpful is to ask ourselves, why is the world going through this pandemic? Is it just some sort of a chance thing, some mechanism, some disease that comes and there's no reason for it? Well, that's certainly not what Yoganandaji taught. He taught that the diseases that, especially pandemics, are due to the consciousness of the world, consciousness of mankind. We draw this to ourselves. He, of course, lived during the great pandemic of the flu, Spanish flu, they called it, in 1918, 1919 at that time. And that killed many, many, many more people than this pandemic has. But what he said about that was drawn to the world because of the negative thoughts of mankind that were aroused during World War I. And so it's the negative consciousness that draws these things to us. So let's ask now, in these times, we're not in an active world war, but what negative thoughts are there in mankind that is drawing this pandemic to us as, let's call it, a cure to errant consciousness? And so among other things is there has been an increasing separation and rejection of people that are not like you. There has been an increasing greed and a polarization of the wealth of the world, so that a very few people are owning a huge percentage of the wealth of the world. And there's a sense of greed, a sense of taking from others and not caring about others. Anyway, without going into it in depth, because I think we all recognize that there are difficulties in the consciousness of mankind at this time. Without going into it in depth, let's understand that it's our consciousness that has drawn this in order to cure us, in order to help. Everything that comes from God, and everything that comes from God is for our benefit. And so as devotees, the first thing to recognize is that this has come to us for our benefit. And our challenge during this time is to make the movement of consciousness that this is trying to force upon mankind, so that we can help model for others the proper way to respond to this.
Well, first I want to greet everyone as well and welcome you to our home in Ananda Ashram in Northern California. And I know Aditya has been here in person, many of our friends have, but it's nice to invite you all to join us as well. Right behind us, you can see on the wall is a beautiful painting that Jyotish did. I hope you can see it clearly. The lighting isn't quite as nice as it should be, but it's Master, our Guruji, on a little boat riding across stormy seas. And we've kept this on our wall for a number of years because it really represents the life in today's world, that we are in stormy seas, but there is Yoganandaji on that little boat of God consciousness holding up a lantern of light to guide us. And that's what we all need to do as well, because the light of God, the light of Guru, resides in our heart. And we need to hold up that light for others. We need to kindle it by practicing daily meditation. If you don't have a regular practice, there are many resources available through Ananda for you to learn meditation. But really, the daily practice of meditation and devotion right now is our strongest armor and faith. Once we were during Swami Kriyananda's sojourn in this physical plane, Ananda was going through a great test, and there was a lot of negativity directed towards us. And I said to Swamiji once, Swami, I don't know that I would have had the strength to go. I knew I wouldn't have the strength to go through what you're going through with such grace and strength during these difficult times. And he said to me, beautiful response. He said, I didn't know that I had the strength, but faith is my armor. And that became the title of a book that he asked me to write about his life, Faith is My Armor. So in these challenging times, to develop and draw on our own spiritual resources, all the more, that's what will get us through. And I see in the lives of friends of ours throughout the world in very difficult situations, loss of jobs, poor health, lockdown, that it's their faith in God and their sadhana, their spiritual practices, that are enabling them both to be strong in and of themselves and to help others around them. And to remember also, finally, in answer to your question, Aditya, that our line of gurus, Babaji, Krishna, who is an incarnation of Krishna, and Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahashaya, and Yogananda, they came to the world at this time, knowing that it would be going through a transition. And I recently saw it, my eyes had read it many times, but it struck me more deeply, the quote of the Shankaracharya, the current one, or most recent one, who is speaking of Yogananda. And he said, such great souls as he only come to the world when humanity has great need. And so remember that our great line of gurus foresaw every challenge that humanity was going through, and they gave us the techniques, the teachings, the right attitudes, and most importantly, their grace to get through these times. So with that, we not only to think of our own happiness, our own well-being, but to think, what light can I bring into the world through my own consciousness? Mm-hmm. So it's really, as Jyotish was saying, it's a time of great opportunity because the needs are great. We can't just be coasting along and, well, maybe I'll meditate next week. It has to be now.
Mm-hmm. I think this one teaching that Yogananda ji emphasized a lot on, that consciousness being like the substrata or the source of everything reflecting consciousness, or as he would say, change your consciousness. I mean, the same answer I'm finding in what you just shared, that instead of feeling helpless in some remote corner, some room somewhere, not knowing what's going on, feeling uncertain or being surprised by news every morning, new unfortunate headlines, one can start working on their consciousness and basically, as you're saying, develop that faith, do something positive about it through their sadhana, through their satsang, through their prayers, perhaps, or any positive avenue for that matter, and work on changing our consciousness. I really feel that's such a positive thing to keep in mind, that I am not an effect. I get to participate in this. It's happening to us all, and let's see what we can do about this. So thank you for sharing those thoughts on how to act positively and have some, a strong faith. I want to also ask you something over here, which as a community, you all went through collectively. This was in 1970s when the Great Fire came. Here was Kriyananda ji trying to start a community because Yogananda ji was enthusiastic about cooperative spiritual communities. And it could be taken as a great misfortune that a starting community, as it was, burned to the ground till the last one house standing. How did you all take to that experience? How did Swamiji take to that, you might say, difficult moment? And how did you all come out as a community to thrive and succeed as you are after all these decades? What made the shift?
Well, that's a very interesting question. For those who are unfamiliar with the event, about 6 or 7 years into the community, forest fire, which California is subject to those, swept through and destroyed virtually all of the housing in the community. And so there were probably about 50 or 60 of us living here at that time, and it destroyed about 25 houses. So there were a number of things that helped us through that. First of all, there was a sense, as Devi ji has already mentioned, that there was a grace of the masters surrounding us during this time. And so it wasn't felt by us who were going through this that we were being punished, but rather that something was happening. Perhaps we didn't understand it very well yet, but something was happening and there was a grace of the Guru surrounding us. So the sense of living in grace was the first thing. The second thing was the network of friends, the community, the satsang that we had. And that too is, all of these are applicable to what we're all going through now. So first of all, feel that the grace of the masters is surrounding and protecting us. Secondly, satsang. When we went through that, if we had gone through it alone, it would have been very, very hard, very challenging. But the fact that we were going through it with friends, with people who cared about us, we could help them, they could help us. It was a network. It made things much, much easier. And so satsang was another. The leadership of Swami Kriyananda, of course, was a third factor. He modeled for us the right consciousness with which to go through this. And I'll end by saying one of the things that he modeled for us was that we are beings of consciousness. During that time, we didn't have insurance that would rebuild the houses. And all of our surrounding neighbors who had also lost their property, their houses, they found out that the cause of the fire was some county equipment. And so they threatened lawsuits against the county. Swami Kriyananda said, no, we will not sue the county. We came to this place to give, not to take. And so it was a sense of giving even during our misfortune. But more importantly, and this was very, very important, he was sending to us, modeling for us the message that our welfare does not depend upon outer circumstances. It depends upon our relationship to God, and it depends upon our own inner strength. And he wanted us to depend on that rather than external, even obvious things like external money. And the little money that we did have that people donated, do you know what we did with that? We didn't build houses for ourselves, which we certainly could have started to do. There were a number of people who it shook their faith, and so they had decided to leave the community. That money that was donated, we gave to those people who were leaving Ananda because we knew that we had God, our faith, we had each other, but those people leaving didn't have anything except their dependence on outer circumstances, money in this case. And so we helped them along in what they had. But this is a very important lesson for us at this time. Don't depend on things outside of yourself. Depend rather on your own strength, your connection with God, your satsang with each other, and then become a model to help others.
Yes, I'll share a few stories on a more personal level about the fire. And again, looking back on my life, I would not have missed that experience for the world. It was one of the greatest gifts spiritually that we've received in our life. But first of all, to make it a little more poignant, some of you know the story, not all, that 11 days before the fire happened, our son was born. And so we had an 11-day-old baby at that time. And the day of the fire, I went in took the child in for a checkup. And so I wasn't there just when the fire struck, but then I started driving back from the doctor's office to the ashram, the community, and I got to a certain place on the road and there was a roadblock. The police were there with a roadblock. And I may not look like the kind of person who would do this, but the police said, "You can't go there. The Ananda community is burning down." And I said, "I'm sorry, sir. This is my home. I have to go." And I drove through the police roadblock and just kept going. And then when I got there, it was a disaster. Everything was burning. I had this new little baby. And I didn't know at that point if Jyotish was alive or not. And then I was looking around, and after some time, I saw him walking along the road down the hill from where our house had been. It was already now destroyed. And I didn't want him to worry about me. So I put a big smile on my face. But I had the ability to smile. It was still there. And Jyotish, I think, had the same thought. So he put a big smile on his face. And the first thing he said to me, and it defined the rest of the experience. The house that we had lived in, he had built himself. And though he is a sincere carpenter, he is not a gifted carpenter. And the house leaked pretty badly. And so the first thing he said to me was, "You know what? We don't have to worry about all those leaks anymore." And we both burst out laughing in the middle of chaos. And that was the lesson, that find the joy in the middle of whatever there is. And then we went up to an adjacent part of Ananda that hadn't been burnt out and shared a home with a number of other families. And I began worrying. I thought, here I have this new baby. I don't have a home for him. All of our little belongings that we had for him, it's all gone. And I started to feel sad. And then I thought, no, where does security come from? Where does a sense of protection come from? It's not from anything outside yourself. If you don't have it in your heart, you can live in a mansion and you won't feel secure and protected. And I said, I love this child. I love God. I will surround us with a sense of God's peace and protection. And so it was. And I will add to what Jyotish said, our neighbors who sued the county settled for millions of dollars, millions. We didn't get a penny, but we had God. Just like the Kauravas and the Pandavas, the Kauravas, they had the armies and the chariots and the elephants, but the Pandavas had Krishna. And so it was. And so we were victorious. And as I said, I learned so much from that. I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.
I mean, it really again makes me think that we are in the middle of, yes, a sort of a tragedy actually, but it also depends how we are defining it. I mean, there is a sense of personal loss people have over here of job. There is a looming sense of insecurity over most people. Just today, I was talking to a friend who came after many months, and I just asked her after a first few pleasantries. I said, "By the way, how is the general neighborhood over there? Have you lost anybody close by?" And she said, "Yes, just early this morning, my daughter's friend's father passed away. It was a blind couple, and the father passed away. And it's just so shattering for families." But I'm just trying to again place these two things in context, that when this fear or sense of personal loss come, I also know others who have, I know of a friend who has committed more than half of his life earning to sharing for a health cause. And he's feeling so much joy that he's in his own little way, from his small bank balance, he's fighting the pandemic in his own way. That it make, again, you see individuals and how they are responding to this situation. Because I also want to come back to that thing you mentioned, Jyotish ji, that there was this, the first thing you mentioned was a sense of grace you felt. Because Kriyananda ji used to say, God's grace is equally present for everyone all the time. How does one, can you be a little bit more specific? How can a devotee or a spiritual aspirant try to feel that grace? Because that grace really gives you a lot of strength. How can one feel grace in these times?
That's a very, very good and important question. First of all, we have to break the hypnotism that our inner state depends on outer conditions. The world very strongly tries to get us to believe that you cannot be happy if you don't have this. You think of all the advertising, all of the messages we get, and the world is constantly trying to say, you cannot possibly be happy unless you have this product or this jewelry or that sari, whatever it is. So we have to fight against that hypnotism to realize that it is our inner state of consciousness that is what determines whether we'll be happy or unhappy. So start with the fact that you have to work on your own state of consciousness and disconnect it or become a little unattached of identifying that with what's happening outwardly. Secondly, the more we think about ourselves, the less happy and less effective we'll be. We heard a beautiful story. So helping others, just as you said, this example of someone helping others, if we help others, not only are we going to be happy, but we will set up karmic conditions where the world will want to help us. We heard a beautiful story coming from our center in West Delhi, where they have a beautiful core group there. And about 6 or 7 people had lost their jobs and were having a very difficult time. And so everybody else banded together and helped that group of people financially to make sure that they were at least able to meet the minimum needs that they had. And now, after 7 or 8 months into the pandemic, 4 out of the 6 have regained their employment and now are in a position where they too can help others. But forgetting oneself and turning instead, feeling that your happiness depends on your own consciousness and in part what you do, and then doing for others. This is one of the basic tenets of all religions. Do for others what you would like them to do for you. And if you do that, that simple thing, you will get in tune with the positive flow of grace, and that grace will help support you. Maybe not in outer circumstances as you define it at this point, but inwardly it will help sustain you.
You know, I'll also add, Jyotish and I are now rereading Mahabharata, and I really suggest that everyone read it now if you are interested, because it's such a description of what's going on right now in the world. There is a battle going on, a battle of light and darkness. And the master has Yoganandaji has a magnificent interpretation of the Gita and by extension the Mahabharata, that it's all symbolic, that it's the battle is the battle within ourselves. The Kauravas and the Pandavas are aspects of our own self, the negative, materialistic, anger, greed. Each character on both sides represents a certain quality within ourselves. But in the battle itself is amazing. I mean, it goes on, and it takes every ounce of strength and positive energy and that they have, the Pandavas, and to keep going. It's not easy. And it's curious because from the very beginning, it's foretold, and they've heard it, the Pandavas, that they will be victorious. Why? Because light is the reality of this world. Darkness is just a diminution of light. That's all it is. It doesn't have reality in and of itself. So even though we know that the light will prevail, we cannot sit back and say, oh, the pandemic will go away in time and things will return. We have to fight the inner battle to stay positive, to help our family members who are despairing or frightened or anxious. We have to help them by our example, by our encouragement, by our own positive energy. But the curious thing, there's so many interesting things in the battle, but there are several points where the Kauravas are able to, by using an astral weapon, to put darkness on the whole battlefield. And it's like it's in darkness. And then there's a point where Shakuni has the power to create the illusion of wild, terrible animals attacking Arjuna. But and this happens a number of times. But in all cases, the Pandavas used the power of light to dispel the darkness. And in the end, the darkness wasn't real. And so that's what we have to remember. We have to fight. It's not going to be easy to get through these challenging times. Really understand that. And summon up, just as the Pandavas did, summon up all your strength, even in extreme discouragement. Dig deep and find the resources where you can be positive. And when the darkness seems overwhelming, just call on God and the darkness will dispel. Many of my friends have told me this, that they were going through difficult times, fear, uncertainty, anxiety, depression. And then by going within, meditating, calling on God, that darkness was dispelled. So it's a battle. These challenging times, it's Swami Kriyananda said once, he had a wonderful sense of humor. He said, life is not for wimps. Wimps meaning,
Weaklings.
Weaklings, yeah. And this time is not for weaklings. This is a time where we find our own spiritual strength. The darkness will recede at a certain point, and then what's left, our deeper relationship with God and our deeper awareness of our own strength, and that strength comes from our connection with God. So what a wonderful time, really, this is, if we can see it in those terms.
It's almost like, I think you're saying that while we are in this battlefield, I think we have to play the role of the Pandavas, play the role of Arjuna. God is there as Krishna, but he won't do our work. And I don't think there were any wimps in the Pandava side. And we have to be our best as we are going ahead doing this. I also like this message very much in this answer you shared of how does one know if one is being a proper channel in these times. You'll feel it if you're joyful, if you're seeing solutions to something, if you're feeling optimistic. Just last week I was having a chat with one of our acharyas, and he said, I think I sometimes feel bad that I'm not feeling sad about the whole thing. He said, I pinch myself, is something wrong with me? And I know his heart is so tender that he would feel anybody's pains, even unspoken pains, but to see that, but to channel joy and solutions and support to one another in these times. I think those are wonderful parameters you've given us. I'd like to now extend this a question a little bit more to make it a bit personal, because the lockdown also exposed a certain weakness we find in human relationships, in families, in homes. I mean, it's like when the lockdown began and nobody was allowed to go out, people found it quite challenging to face one another, deal one another in the same family. And I'm sure you've heard this from many others, how does one work on creating harmony in a difficult family in these times?
Yeah, this is a very interesting, and again, there are so many, many lessons to be learned in this time of difficulty and lockdown. And this is one of them. But in terms of my feeling, I don't feel badly for the pressure that our people are under. I feel badly when they don't respond properly to it, because then I know that they're going to bring more suffering on themselves. But in terms of difficult family relationships, you know, as we go through life in any kind of a situation, we tend to try to create an equilibrium in it. At work, we try to find a way, well, we don't get along very well with this coworker. I'll avoid him as much as I can, and I'll keep my mouth closed if the boss is a little angry, so we find an equilibrium. The same in a home. We find an equilibrium. We may have some members of the household that we're in that it's not very pleasant to be around, but we find a way to cope with that. But now conditions have changed. And so instead of coping by leaving every morning and being away for 8 hours or 10 hours and only relating a small amount of time, we're forced to come together and to have kind of Swami would, we have to work it out. Swami would sometimes put people together who had a natural distaste for each other, or difficulty. I shouldn't say distaste, but the chemistry didn't quite work. And Swami, some people thought it was a little mischievous on his part, but he would make them work together. And eventually they would work through whatever it was within them that was being challenged by that. So if you're in a family situation and you're finding it difficult now, this is an opportunity to look, first of all, what do I bring to this equation? Am I a difficult person to get along with? Do I push at others? Do I have anger? Do I act in a negative way? And it gives us an opportunity not to just gloss over, but to actually look and to change our behavior. And secondly, it gives us an opportunity to change the reactive process. So if somebody is doing something that we normally react to negatively, it's an opportunity for us to say, well, I'm too reactive in these situations. I should look not at what they're doing wrong and blame them. I should ask the question, why do I let it upset me? If they raise their voice, why do I let that upset me? Not, oh, they're terrible people, they cannot raise their voice. But again, always begin to look at whatever situation, in this case, family situation, what is the opportunity to learn and to raise my consciousness? And where there's disharmony, if we can create harmony in the family, we will have not only created a better situation for the family, but we'll have changed ourselves. Where there's darkness, our job is to bring light.
And I'll also add, it's a time of that each of us should dig deep and find more patience, more acceptance, more forgiveness for each other, because everyone's under stress. Everyone is perhaps at times not at their best. On a lighter note, Yogananda has a wonderful cleansing diet, 9-day cleansing diet that he recommends devotees do. It's very effective, but it's difficult. And it brings up a lot of toxins, and you often get irritable or sharp or reactive. And when Jyotish and I would do it, we would have an agreement that nothing one says during you're doing the cleansing diet can be remembered or held against you. Just you erase it all. And that's
I just want to add here, one time our son was, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old. I can't remember exactly what, but we were chastising him for something that he had done incorrectly. And he kind of looked at us and he said, "Are you guys on that diet again?"
And in these times, I recommend that you have a short memory. Don't hold things against people that they say. Everyone's under stress now. Be patient, be forgiving. We had a friend who had she was a wonderful, wonderful person, but she had a short temper. And she told us the story that once she had called up a friend of hers who was a financial advisor, and she had a question for him, and he just snapped at her and he said, "I told you not to call me at work. I'm busy now." And he slammed down the phone. And she got very, very angry, and she tried to dial him back, but the line, this was in the days of rotary phones, tried to dial him back, but couldn't get him. Busy hours went by. Finally, she forgot about it. And then she remembered, and she thought about him, and she said, that wasn't like him. He's usually so kind and patient. And finally, she got through, and she said to her friend, "What's troubling you? Not, why did you talk that way to me? But what's troubling you?" And he broke down in tears and he said, "Oh, I'm having such a hard time at work and at home, and thank you for inquiring." So if someone acts in a way that is distressing to you, rather than reacting back in kind, maybe just ask them quietly, lovingly, "Are you having a hard time, or what's bothering you?" And I really know that those sort of reaching out beyond your own personal reactions, it's what builds deeper love and deeper understanding between people. And, again, living through this together as a family unit, as an extended family, if we do it with forgiveness and patience, kindness and love, it will deepen the bonds that we have with one another. And I'm not just speaking, kind of idealistically. It's true, and we can really form a deeper connection on a divine level now during these difficult times.
Thank you. I'm seeing our discussion kind of move from a larger challenge that the world is facing to more like a family unit. It makes me think of, okay, we want to be a solution to on a macroscopic level, but then a devotee is always having opportunities on a microscopic level, on a family unit. And how can we even reach out to somebody who's misunderstood us perhaps, or things like that? Thank you for suggesting those opportunities, and I hope we'll all be looking around for those and making correctives there. Jyotish and Devi ji, you spoke about your son, and I know now he has two wonderful children, your grandchildren. I want to just ask, you met them recently, I think about a month ago. How are they doing, or how are children in general, of that age doing? In urban areas, they find themselves, of course, mostly limited in the house. In a setting like Ananda village, there's much more outdoor space and such. But how are they doing? And also, what can parents do in these times to work with children? Because often they can be neglected in an unintentional way. Their needs can be unmet. What is your feeling about this?
Thank you. It's helpful to bring it down to personal examples. We were able for about 3 weeks ago, for the first time in 6 months, to physically see our grandchildren, who we love very much, and they love us. They love coming to our home. They love visiting. We love seeing them. But all of that had been taken away for a while. We, of course, kept up by calling, and we would talk with them on the phone and do what we could to stay in touch, but we hadn't seen them. So we went, but we did it safely. We went for a walk. We didn't, we kept a little social distance. David G. wore a mask during the time that we were together. And so it was working within the parameters that were kind of forced on us. The children themselves are actually doing very well during this time. Their parents have made sure they have a little two or three friends that they have what we call a pandemic bubble together, that everybody knows the others are staying safe, that once you start sharing with each other, it's like a little family unit. And so they have enough stimulation, enough friendship, and of course their parents are helping them, and they're going to school online. And we asked them how that was going. They said, it's fine. It's more fun to be there with our friends, but it's going just fine. Children very often respond to the way the parents model how they should respond. And in this case, the parents are modeling positive values and positive energy, and the children are picking up on that. If the parents model negativity, the children will begin to do that also. And so one thing that Devi said, I'll just emphasize again, be very loving and patient with people at this time. For many people, this is a time of great fear and great tension and stress. And when people are under stress and fear especially, very often they rely back on their more primitive responses as opposed to their more refined responses. So be patient and understanding with people. And the last thing I'll say is that think of yourself, think of light as a resource, just like money is a resource. And if you have money at this time, honestly, you have an obligation to help others with that. If you have light or understanding at this time, that is your real wealth, much more than money. And you have an obligation to help others with your light and with your positivity, just as if you were a rich man at this time and saw the needs of others.
And I'll add too, both personally and then I see there's a question that's come, how to help people, especially teenagers and children, deal with mental health issues. Try to look for positive things you can help your children to be involved in. We send our children, we mail them books that we think they'd be interested in reading, and art supplies that they can, and little arts crafts that they can do at home. And I know our son takes the children. They don't live at Ananda, but not too far away, and they go for nice walks together all the time, and just to do things that uplift the energy, consciously try to keep the energy moving. And the other grandfather of our grandchildren on the other side, he's a very nice man. He gets on Facebook with the children and he reads them stories, which is just so sweet. And then they read stories back to him. So it just to keep understand that these are for particularly for children, teenagers who are in the formative years, who don't have yet the resources that we have, to understand this is very challenging for them, and to keep finding things as much as working and, all the things that we are working at home or whatever we may be doing. Part of our Dharma now is to offer, don't ignore the children. They need light more than ever right now. And to just keep reinforcing it however you can do, and look for things that they innately enjoy, and try to find ways that you can, even in, compromised circumstances now, you can still offer that to them. For example, our little 8-year-old grandson loves sports. Well, they can't do sports now because there's no team sports. So we sent him a book, a little children's biography of a famous basketball player, because we knew he would like that. And again, it encourages him in his own interests. Encourage their interests, be positive, make sure that you're tuning in to their needs, and model the example. That's so important for children, positive examples of adults who are dealing in a constructive way with the challenges.
I know our time is growing short, but I do want to emphasize that each of us have our own individual responsibility to make our spiritual practices strong at this time. Because the more we're in tune with God through meditation, through listening to spiritual talks, reading spiritual things, maybe playing bhajans or whatever music that we find uplifting, spiritually uplifting, the more we can maintain an inner connection with God, the more light we will have to help others. So we have a responsibility individually to make our relationship with God deeper at this time of need.
And we also want to take this opportunity, as our time is coming to a close, to, in this wonderful season of Diwali, where, as Aditya said, we're celebrating it with all of our friends in India. But now, just to send our heartfelt, warm greetings and wishes for a happy Diwali season, and remember the deeper celebration of Diwali. It's presents and so forth, but it's the festival of light. It's the giving of light. It's the returning of light to the world. So let's really focus on the deeper aspect of Diwali now, and in whatever way we can, light the little lights around us and within us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for these questions and answers. I'll actually close by sharing. May I ask one last question that has
Of
also
course.
come in? Yeah, and it's okay, we have the bandwidth to go along if you have 5-6 more minutes.
Of course.
Sure, we have as much time.
Because you spent so much time with Swami Kriyananda ji, and he had personally heard Yogananda ji make some predictions, and of course Yogananda ji would say it's not fixed in written in stone, but it depends, like you've been sharing, on human nature, on an individual level, on a larger scale. And Yogananda spoke of some difficult times for mankind if we didn't change ourselves. Could you share a little bit about those? What were those, and what can one do in these times to mitigate that effect?
Swami was very often drawn to speak to us about preparing for difficult times, because Yogananda had said that just as you were saying, Aditya, unless mankind changed their consciousness, we were going to draw to us very, very difficult times. So Swami often told us to prepare for that. First of all, by preparing inwardly to be strong in our spiritual practices, flexible in our thinking, to a certain extent, unattached to dependency on the world. That's the most important. But then also he urged us to take physical precautions. So here at Ananda Village, we have worked hard to get the ability to grow food, to be self-sufficient as much as we can, to be able to, we have at least half of our power comes from solar energy. So physical actions to prepare, as well as prepare ourselves inwardly. But we should not push away, but expect that hard times are coming, because mankind has a disease of the soul that needs to be cured by I don't know, harsher measures, because we have not willingly cured it on our own during easier times.
And the things that Master spoke about were, and he spoke of it with tremendous energy to prepare people, as did Swamiji. He spoke of things like economic collapse. Well, it's not so far away. He spoke of global upheavals and instability. He said, and I'm not saying this to frighten you, but he said there would be weeping in every home. Well, with the pandemic, it's pretty evident how this could happen. But he also said that he spoke of a third world war. But as you said, Aditya, he said these things are not carved in stone. If enough of the population, global population, can change their consciousness, these things can be either averted or ameliorated, either not happen or be much less. And so I think that's so important now. That's why at the very beginning, remember we said Yogananda came, the Shankaracharya said, a great soul like Yogananda comes when there is a great need of humanity. Well, our need is great now. And Yogananda came to show us the way out of this darkness. And we can just realize, and also he said, just to end on a positive note, he said, after these times are over, there would be a period of stability and peace that the world has not known for a long time. So will we live to see that? Maybe not, but it's coming. And maybe the children that are going through this difficult time will live to see that, and they will be stronger for having gone through this difficult time. So
it's like
I think, go on.
Please go ahead.
No, I was finished. Just to realize that the times, Yogananda spoke of such times, but in the end, it would be, we would come out of this period and be better for it.
I was just thinking, being a medical doctor, that it's like if an illness is predicted, one can become strong, but it may seem unfortunate to go through an illness, but even that, then to think of the recovery, isn't that so wonderful? It's like a fracture. If mankind has to learn a lesson, it may learn it the hard way, but learn it will. And the masters have predicted that. I really want to thank you for renewing our understanding of the spiritual path, Yogananda ji's teachings, what you learned from Swamiji. And I also want to now, friends, take the opportunity, and I want to invite you, Jyotish and Devi ji, to please release your book, A Touch of Love. I have a copy over here, and you have a wonderful ribboned copy there. So will you please open it?
Okay, we will cut the ribbon.
Yes. And
there it is.
So the title is, these are A Touch of Love, Living the Teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. And this is a compilation of our weekly blogs. That this is from the years 2016 and 2017 and 2018. And this is the third in the series. There's a touch of joy, a touch of light, a touch of joy, a touch of love, and then the next one will be a touch of peace. And so we hope maybe this would be a Diwali gift for people. But
it is going to be a Diwali gift to everybody over here. And friends, everybody who is attending, I request you to please leave your details, especially if you're coming for the first time, if you're not in our database, just your phone number, your email address, so we can get back to you with this link of how to purchase this book or how to receive it as a gift, and also how to receive other information of what Jyotish and Devi do. I want to just read from the index, which is extremely extensive because this includes weekly blogs from 2 years. I just want to read a few headings of what Jyotish and Devi ji have covered. I found this one very amusing. The first one, God goes on vacation. 4 keys to deeper meditations. 50 years of Ananda. The best way to deal with change. The solution lies within the problem. The challenges of life and how to overcome them. How to control desires. What happens to your brain during meditation? Seclusion. Finding your own spiritual power. Teamwork. Self-control. Acting on your intuition. Building inner power. Keeping it simple, and many more. And finally, a very beautiful one, the 104th one over here, my New Year's resolutions. So as we're moving in that direction, I thank you once again, Jyotish and Devi ji, for this gift you offer us every week. And now it's in a compilation with pictures and photographs. Certainly, friends, I've been gifting the previous ones. And now, the moment this book comes out in print, which is coming today or tomorrow, so please place your orders and we will be very happy to share it with you. I'll request you now to please lead us into a minute of meditation for Diwali. And as you blessed us with your wishes, then we can close with a healing prayer from your side. And then I would like to close with a small healing prayer from my side. So
let's sit quietly. Sit up straight so that your spine can be a river of energy flowing to the brain and the point between the eyebrows. Feel the grace of God surrounding you. And feel that light of the divine, the light that we celebrate in Diwali, shining within you, especially at the point between the eyebrows. And project that light now out to your family members, your friends, your co-workers, your city or town, your nation, the world. May the light of God protect, sustain, guide, and bless us all, and bless the world. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
And now, Jyotish and Devi ji, we would like to take this opportunity to offer a small blessing of deep gratitude from our side. So I urge all our viewers to take a moment to see our 2 divine friends, our teachers, our parents, in this light of God, which flows through them, which is around them. And may this light, let's add our little light to this great light of theirs. that we may all collectively be able to bring joy, hope to everyone who is looking for this in their own way. Let's visualize Jyotish and Devi ji in the light of the masters. And let's rub our hands together, sharing our hearts, deep joy and gratitude as we chant Om 3 times, sharing these blessings with them. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May you have a wonderful Sunday. May you have a wonderful week ahead. And likewise, friends, may you all have a wonderful week ahead. Next month, on the date, December 6th, Sunday, the same time, Ananda Sangha Mumbai will be hosting this conversation with Jyotish and Devi ji on a different topic. We hope to see you all over there. God bless you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you, Jyotish and Devi ji.
It's been a joy to share with you.
Likewise. Thank you.